And oh, what did I do? I managed to turn my image off before I went live. So that's okay. I don't really need that. Here, we'll just move this over here. That way you can still see me on the screen. Maybe. Maybe not. What is this here now? There's so many different things on here. What is this for? Okay. I'm just using Ecamm Live, still not quite used to using this thing yet. But all right, the reason I'm going live into a couple different groups here, besides testing some stuff, is I want to go over a question that a couple people had. In fact, I think I just pulled up one of them right here. Tom McMaster had this question. And so did, I think her name was Lori in the FBC group this morning, on how can you essentially create what in 1.0 would have been an image pop-up and create that into 2.0 as a something close to that. And I thought about it, and the best way to do it is actually just to use the pop-up element in 2.0. And what we're going to do is we're going to have some thumbnail images on the page. When somebody clicks on the thumbnail image, then what's going to happen is the pop-up's going to open, and there's going to be a bunch of images inside of the pop-up that correspond with the thumbnail images. And when we click on one thumbnail image, pop-up will open, and well, let me just show you how it works, and that'll be so much simpler. So let me just reload the page and make sure I got this thing running right. So here is image number one. So we're just going to click on image number one, and out comes the pop-up. And I will just show you here. Let's just inspect this, and we'll see here we have so full image one is what I have set on here as an ID. I decided to use IDs on these. I could have used attributes if I wanted to use that. And so when I click on this image right here, pops up full image one. If I click on the second one here, we will inspect this, and this one here should now be full image two right there. And let's just look at this. We'll inspect this element right here. That element has a thumbnail of one. The next one has a thumbnail of two, thumbnail of three right there, if you're not seeing what I'm talking about. So that's all right there. So how do we get this set up? So let me show you this. And there's a couple of hidden things on here. So let's go in here to this row. We got our button there. Let me see. Is that the right thing? Hidden row. Okay, let me boom, boom. Okay. So in here, we'll start with this button. So right now, it doesn't matter where you have your thumbnails, how you set your thumbnails up. In this case here, I just have them all, four of them side by each, have them in a flex container. And I have the flex container set to the direction of row and have a little bit of gap in between. And I'm saying wrap. So if I put in more than the 4 or 5 or 6, whatever, it'll wrap down to the next line. And then right here, I have an image, and I have this width set to 250 pixels. Again, you can decide what you want on all those kind of things. Then I have another separate row down here. And on this separate row, I have a button in here. And the only reason for this button is to turn on the pop-up. So we're going to set this to open the pop-up. And then, let me see here, I also put in here an ID of open pop-up button. So I gave the ID of that. So we can say that when somebody clicks on this image, we want the code to click on this button. And when the code clicks on the button, then the pop-up will drop down and the image that we want will appear inside of the pop-up. So we got that. So all I'm going to do here in this case here is I'm just going to hide this row because we don't need it. And as you see here, I gave this row a title of hidden button row. And so we'll open that back up again and we'll come in here. We're just going to say hide it because we don't want to see it on the screen at all. So you can do that a lot of times. And, I thought about it. Okay, well, I can code the entire opening of that button, or it's just like, it's a lot simpler. Just hide a button on the screen or on the page, boom, activate the click inside of the code itself. So now the next thing we do here is we come in for each one of these thumbnail elements. And again, in this case here, I'm using IDs. And so I just called this one thumbnail 1. And guess what I called this one here? Let's see here. I called that one thumbnail 2, thumbnail 3, thumbnail 4. Okay. Then we get into the pop-up. So let's show the pop-up. And in the pop-up here, I hid all of the images that are in there. I could put them in, I had not hide them, but then in the code, we'd have to say hide them before we started this whole thing. So we could do this now. We can go into our layout. We can come over here, and you can see here I got full image 1, and that's what I gave it, an ID of full image 1. I also gave it the title of full image 1. Just that way, it is a lot easier if you're looking at the layout then, and you know that you set all of your IDs the same as your title, then you know exactly what the ID is, and you don't have to think about it. And did I do that with these here as well? Let me see here. Yeah, thumbnail 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's just a simple way to do it. Same thing if you're using any kind of attributes. You could also come in and change the title here to what the attribute is, just so you know what it is and you don't have to keep going into the sidebar all the time to see what it actually is. So we got the thumbnail images set. We have here in our pop-up, we have our 4 images set in here. And again, in here, I just set them to 100%. So that's going to be 100% of the width of the pop-up minus any kind of padding or anything that is in the pop-up. And we can go into our settings for our pop-up. Here I have this set it to 70% of width of the page and 80% for mobile. And then we have top, bottom. Yeah, I don't know why this is set to 41 and 24. I'll just make it 40 and 25. Doesn't really matter. So make the modal, the pop-up, any size you want on there. So now the last thing we have to do is put in our code, and I built myself a little bookmarklet here to make it easier to get into the footer code. But let's go into the CSS, and okay, there's no CSS, there's no header tracking code, so it's just footer. So here between our 2 script tags, which I don't need so much space here, we can just take a little bit of this out. And first thing we're going to say here is when somebody clicks, so we got a click function right here. So when somebody clicks on that element that has the ID of thumbnail, so again, what had the ID of thumbnail here were these images right here. They all had the ID of thumbnail. So when you click on that, we want it to do something. So the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to grab a hold of the ID for this element. So right here we're saying grab the attribute for this, and ID is an attribute. We want to grab the attribute of ID. And what do we want to grab that for? We want to grab it for this. This simply means the thing we just clicked on. So if I just clicked on this image here, image becomes this. So it says grab the ID of this image, is essentially if you were to put that into an English sentence. And then what we're going to do then is we want to split off everything after the dash. So we're going to say go into this thing, find the dash, split it at that point, and we are going to take the array index value, array index of 1. So when you build an array in jQuery, it's 0-based indexing. So if we have, in this case here, thumbnail-1, thumbnail would be in our 0 index position. The number 1 would be in our 1 index position. So we're going to grab a hold of that number is what we're really doing. And we're then applying that to this variable right here that I'm calling split attribute. So we're going to do that. Then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to click on that little button we had here. So we're saying grab basically the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever it is off of here. Then we're going to click on that button because that button is going to cause the pop-up to appear on the page. And then, this all happens instantaneously as you see when I do it. It's not like it's delayed by seconds. It's all in a split second, but it does it in this order. And so then once it does that, then it says go to our full images. So again, the full images were the ones in the pop-up. So those were, that's not what I wanted. We want to go here to pop-up, show layout. So here we got full image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want to go to the full image. Let's go here. So we want to go to full image But what we want to do is we got full image dash. So all we're saying here is add that number that we pulled off up here. So if we click on thumbnail 1, we want to go to full image 1, and we want to show that inside of the pop-up. Because as of right now, those images are residing inside the pop-up, but we hid all of them. So now we're just coming in and we're saying, okay, match up these two numbers, find the full image inside of the pop-up, and show it. That's all it does. Takes a couple lines of code right there. Now, the one thing you have to do then is if you were to just leave that alone, if you were just to walk away at that point, what's going to happen is you go in the first time and you click on 1, and 1 is going to appear in the pop-up, and then you close that out and you go to number 2. Well, now 1 and 2 are going to appear because we didn't take out number 1. So we always have to set it back to its default state, which is all of the images being hidden. So we're going to go back to that state. And so now what we're going to do here is we're going to say, if somebody clicks on what is the class of L-modal modal wrapper. So it's two classes. You don't really probably need both of them. I just put it in there just kind of for clarity's sake. But so let's just take a look at this here. So we clicked on this, we opened this up. So I clicked on 1. This here will be now full image 1 right there. But now we are inside of this pop-up. And if we come up here to, where did I do this? Right here. Okay, so this is the point right here. This is, so we got L modal wrapper. So again, I could just probably use just the class of L modal, but I decided to put the two of them together, L modal and modal wrapper, just in case for some reason there might have been a double use of that class of L modal. Chance of it happening is pretty slim. And so let's go back here and look at our code. And so it says, if somebody clicks on that. So in order to get out of one of these pop-ups, there's two ways to get out of it. You can click over here. You can click anywhere outside of it. So if I click anywhere outside of here, it will close the modal, close the pop-up. Or if you click on this little X over here, and actually, I was going to say, now I think about it, I hadn't actually tested it with clicking on the X, but it's still working just fine. So those two things will get us out of here. Well, they're all included right here inside of this larger modal element right there. Modal, again, is a pop-up. So it's included inside of there. So it basically says that if you click, oh, that's interesting. So I do actually have a bug in here. I just found that out by accident. Because what I did is because that's right, all of this here would be included inside of there. So that is going to be a little bit of a bug fix, but if you guys are watching this and you want to use this, just reach out to me, send me a DM, and we can talk about how to fix that. But so I got a little bit of a bug there. That's okay. But the point is when somebody then clicks on that wrapper around it, what we want to happen is we want that full image to hide. So the all the images inside of the pop-up, as you saw right there, even when I did it wrong. So if I click inside of here, what you're going to see is that image hid. Well, we want the image to hide and we want that to close at the same time. So again, I got to do a little work on that to fix that up. But that's the whole idea, is because natively the function inside of ClickFunnels is you click outside of here or you click on this X and it will close the modal up. And because of my code then, it will actually hide the image. Well, in the case here, because I got that little bit of a bug, if you click in here, it will just hide the image, but it won't close the modal because that is not activated inside of ClickFunnels. So besides that little bit of an error, I think it works pretty good. You could go a little bit further. You could change up the animation of how it slides in from the top. You could do something like that. Of course, you can change the sizes. You can change, there's all kinds of settings you can do on the modal itself, make a darker background, change the size, change whatever you want about it. And the truth of the matter is you could also set this up. So if you had an image here, you could have somebody click on that image, and instead of having an image inside of here, you could put in different content in here. You could put in whole different sections that, as long as you give it a particular ID and you find the ID the same way we did with these images. Or like I said, it doesn't have to be an ID. It could be an attribute of any type in there. But if you did that, you could actually put different forms in here. So you can say, you know, okay, if you want to sign up for this list, let's say, come on over here, put in your information, click send, and you would go on to that particular list. At least I think that would work. Then becomes a question of having multiple different inputs on the page. So that does become a little funky, but you could definitely display different information inside of each one of these. Whether you could have a different opt-in or not, again, is something we have to test. And with code, just like marketing, hooks, stories, everything else, test. So that's that. So that is all I have for today. Hopefully this turned out okay on all the platforms I was going live on. And until next time, I hope you all have a great day.